A major definition of the occult is knowledge of the unknown, knowledge of the paranormal. So it would just make sense that there would be scary stories related to these cults. Without further ado, let's grab a blanket, turn off your lights for true scary horror stories that happen with these cults. Michelle remembers. I've been lurking on Reddit for a while, and often find myself engrossed in the paranormal-related threads. Recently created an account, and wanted to share this here. In the mid to late 80s, it was discovered that a satanic cult was performing its rituals in an abandoned field near our house. My sister and a couple neighbors would wake up in the middle of the night, hearing chanting, etc. I was 13 years old at the time, and was always fascinated by ghosts, UFOs, etc. So, of course, this intrigued me. My sister later gave me a book that was discussed in one of her religion classes in high school. The book was Michelle Remembers, and was claimed to be a true story of a woman who, while under a psychiatrist's hypnosis, recalled being ritually molested by Satanists and used in their black mass to summon the devil to appear on Earth. I think I slept on my parents' floor for 2 weeks after reading it because I was so unnerved. Fast forward to when I was 16 years old. I was working for the local township maintenance crew cutting grass, picking up trash, filling potholes, etc. One day, we were sent to cut the grass and weeds at an old cemetery in a rural area outside of town. While working among the gravestones, my 5 coworkers and I got on the topic of Satanism. I, of course, told them about the cult that I'd been practicing near my house and about the book, Michelle Remembers. Not much later, we finished the job and piled into the truck to head back to the garage where the tools are stored. The garage is a big metal building, 4 or 5 bay doors, dark, dusty, and the walls were lined with all sorts of crap that hadn't been moved or touched in years. It seemed that township employees would dump old furniture and junk in there, hoping that someone else would take it. After unloading the mower and sickles from the pickup, I walked to the far back corner of the garage. I don't know why. I never had an interest in any of the old furniture before, and if asked, I couldn't have told you what was actually in there. In the corner by itself was a small nightstand with a single drawer. I open it, and alone in there is a paperback copy of Michelle Remembers. I freaked. My coworkers insisted that I planted it there to spook them. I didn't. I honestly didn't know what the nightstand was in the garage until that moment when I inexplicitly walked over to it. I think I was more frightened by the fact that I can't explain why. I walked straight to the nightstand, then I was finding that book inside the drawer. This 16-year-old strapping young man then spent the rest of the week sleeping on the floor in his parents' bedroom again. I may have to share my Ouija board story soon as well. Weird event after leaving a cult. I don't know if this is an actual ghost story, but against my better judgment, it certainly felt and still feels paranormal in some way. So basically, a few years ago, I was in a cult out in Northern Virginia. After being involved almost all the time with it for a while, through my stepmom and father, it got to the point that I was just too rooted in actual reality to continue with it, and it just felt abrasive. I had saved up enough secretly over time because I knew my dad would be pissed if I left the community, but on top of that, the group had very strict rules about not leaving. To them, it was one of the worst possible things you could do. I'm not going to bullshit you. We weren't like worshipping the devil or doing animal sacrifices or anything of that nature. But 2 big no-nos were talking about the community to outsiders or leaving altogether. Even now, I'm a bit hesitant to talk about it. Anyways, I had a plan set up with a mutual friend of my brother who lived with my mother and was spared of most of this, to get a job farther south and be his housemates. I broke the news to my father, and my stepmom ended up kicking me out of the place, forcing me to stay at a motel. I went back the next morning and several of my seniors were sitting there in my living room with my father, who was crying his eyes out. My stepmom was MIA. I haven't seen her since. They wanted to re-educate me and have me work for the church directly, essentially, so they can keep an eye on me. I wouldn't have it. I told them I was ready to move on whether they liked it or not. The seniors asked me to leave the room, and an uncomfortably long while later, my father came out of the house, crying worse than before, and let me know I was shunned. For them, this wasn't like a normal everyday disassociation with a person. To them, this was God turning his back on you. I don't know all the details because in almost 5 years in the community, only one member had defected and they had come back. I knew it involved a ritual performed by the elders alone, and a redemption period, which was basically a week to change my mind and come back. The kicker was, the community believes that a shadow would hang over you. It was supposed to be bad luck that would follow you for the rest of your life, but it was supposed to be an actual presence that you could sense. I was a friggin' adult at this point and knew that this was a scare tactic to keep people in line. Why tell you this huge-ass preamble? Some weird shit did actually happen when I left. So, there I am, 3 days later, having had to stay in that motel and have my father pack up all my stuff and leave it on his porch. He maybe spoke 3 sentences to me those couple days, and that wasn't even allowed. I'm on the highway, having just passed through Quantico, listening to a local classic rock station out of Richmond, and I start getting some weird static. At first, it was just a hum in the background of the music, and by the time I was down the road a bit further, it was a full-on static-filled voice drowning out the music. I couldn't make out the words and didn't really sound like a talk show or news or anything like that, so I just turned it off and switched to my CD changer and played some rap. About 20 minutes go by, and I stop at a gas station to fill my tank and grab some stuff for the road. I get in, light a cig, and turn the radio back up, just to hear my music being covered up by that static voice again. Only this time, it's over my friggin' CD. I just straight up turned the radio off at this point and focused on the road. It took a minute to sink in how friggin' odd it was. I mean, I'm not that tech savvy, but I'm pretty sure that it isn't possible for a radio wave to hijack my speaker when I'm not even playing an FM frequency. Shit gives me the chills because of how off this voice sounded. I couldn't make out the words, but I'm pretty damn positive it wasn't the news or anything like that. In fact, despite how distorted it was, I don't think it was English or Spanish. So, I now live in my place with my girl with no bad luck or curse or any bullshit like that. It's just a little too weird to be coincidence. Man, at the time, for a second or two, I even thought about turning around when it happened. I've spoken to my father maybe once in the last 2 years, and it was only briefly. I understood what my choice meant, and I'm doing well for myself. I guess that matters a whole lot more than dwelling on that shit forever. I just thought you guys would like to hear a legit weird experience. Happy holidays and peace, guys. Satanic cult encounter. I don't know where to start. Let me just say that I am a strong Christian, and you should never mess with evil. Just over 2 years ago in early October, me and a few of my friends had been toilet papering people every week. It was a sort of our little rendition. We had always heard of a supposedly satanic cult that was nearby, about 10 minutes away from our high school. At this point in our lives, we had all graduated, '05. We thought it'd be fun if we could sneak onto the cult's property and fork and TP them. My friends had been drinking a little, so I drove my friend's car. We parked down the road in some labor yard type of deal. We all had masks and were dressed in dark clothing. I was scared myself, because I've always wanted to see something with my own eyes, and I thought I was really about to. This place was in the middle of nowhere, and there was a pretty full moon. I just remember it being fairly light outside. We had to climb through a fence, and we took our time about it. There were 5 of us: Jesse L, Jesse D, Alex, Andy, and myself. Once we got through the fence, There was a grass pasture. We were all walking slowly when there was a loud, eerie noise that, to me, sounded like an old screen door slamming shut. We froze and bent down at the knees. As far as we could tell, no one else was around. So, after several minutes, we continued. We got to a forest area with trails and a small building, a very old small church. On it said, Church of Christ. There was a light on it, and we tried to open it, but it was locked. We stood around for at least 15 minutes trying to look inside this thing, but it was dark inside. At one point, I heard something move across the floor, so with nothing really happening at this cult, we left. We walked back down the dirt road to the lumber place to get in my friend's car. I had the keys. I couldn't get the door open. The key wouldn't work. My friend even tried and it would not unlock. Now, this thing had an old keychain thing to push, lock, unlock, but they didn't work, and without me pressing anything, all of a sudden the alarm went off and the lights started flashing, and then the car was unlocked. We all piled in because supposedly the guy who owned the lumberyard is a real mean son of a bitch. So I put it into drive and got cruising down the road when all of a sudden the lights just shut off. Complete darkness. I did not touch anything. Then we had to find the switch and the lights came back on. I slammed on the brakes, of course, when the lights shut off. So I don't know if a spirit or a demon was messing with us, saying don't mess with me. Who knows? We didn't end up TPing them. The scariest thing that happened was when I got home the next day. I live about 25 miles from where the cult was. I pull up into my driveway and I saw multiple cats. It was about 3 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon, so the sun was glaring. I couldn't really tell how many were there. I had one cat, but not any more than that. So I got out of my car. I love cats, by the way, but not these. There were like 3 identical, all black cats, but not full grown. No idea where they came from. My dad didn't have any idea where they came from, and they happened to just appear out of nowhere the day after I go messing around at a Satanist cult. So I told a few people, and my sister works with a guy who was supposedly a ghost hunter on the side. She told him about it, and he said that it was a warning sign not to be taken lightly. Bad things come in threes. I got rid of those cats. I put them in a box and drove them outside of a town about 7 miles from where I live. The weird thing was, when I took them out in the country to a small road, a place my friend said would be a good spot, an all-black car followed me down 2 different roads. I put on my blinker to go on the small road. It's actually called Clinton Trail, so it's pretty small. It's a trail, by the way. I put on its blinkers to follow, so I said screw this and I went straight. I got out, threw the cats out of the box, and haven't went back to the cult since. I guess this is nothing too unbelievable, but it's true. A strange haunting in Folsom. I have always been a curious creature. I joined the Ordo Rosicrucix, AMORC, aka the Rosicrucians, to better understand secret societies. When I was going to college, I did a book report on cults, like the Hare Krishna, People's Temple, Church of Scientology, and even the Church of Satan, but actually visiting these cults and talking with the members of these cults. Of course, I got an A in sociology for actually doing my own personal investigations of these cults. The funny thing is that the Church of Scientology and the Church of Satan actually asked me to leave because I was counteracting everything they were saying and it angered them. As a ghostwriter and paranormal investigator for HPI, Haunted and Paranormal Investigations of Northern California, I want to better understand ghosts, spirits, poltergeist activity, demons, residual hauntings. How can I do this? Easy. By learning firsthand through a professional outfit like HPI. I also sit and wonder on the existence of ghosts. Do they have jobs like living people? Do they know of the existence of God? I came up with my own theories on life after death. Here's my theory. When a person dies, they are confronted by the light. They are beckoned by the deceased family and friends who try to entice them to go into the light. When they refuse, they remain on Earth. It appears that most ghosts are confined to a home, to a place that they are familiar with, or even to a graveyard. Why? Perhaps in the afterlife, They have ghost police, a governing force of spirits that keep them entrapped in one area until they are ready to go into the light and reach an energy plane with other spirits, an energy plane that may be known as heaven or even hell. Perhaps some spirits or ghosts don't want to enter the light because they are afraid that they may go into a place of damnation, a place that we learn about from the preachers of our churches that talk of fire and brimstone and a lake of fire. Let's talk about demons for a minute. Now, demons are completely different from ghosts. Demons that were formerly angels have more power than your average day ghost and can manifest any part of the world in a blink of an eye. No one seems capable of controlling demons unless an exorcism takes place, and perhaps then angels will keep the demon at bay and chase the demon away. Residual hauntings? With residual hauntings, an intense event took place, perhaps a murder, perhaps a rape, perhaps even a very important speech that was given to some very important people. Because of these events, a lot of untapped energy was released from the people that participated in this event. So much energy that it left an imprint in the atmosphere, and like a recorder, it plays back the event over and over again. We at times can see these events take place in a ghostly realm, but we are unable to communicate with the ghosts of this event because they are unaware of their surroundings. They are mere holographic images in the fabric of space and time, repeating an event over and over again. But how about reincarnation? Is the person with the past life memories really that person of the past? I doubt it. Perhaps they are very much in tune with the energy of a deceased person and are able to see the life of that deceased person and even contain their memories, causing the person who thinks they are reincarnated to think they were once that person. A reincarnated person is actually a person that is very sensitive in picking up the memories of a deceased person and living with those past memories. What is the poltergeist phenomenon? When a child, usually a young girl, is going through puberty, her body is changing rapidly inside, and she is able to release energy that is so intense that it can cause knocking or rapping sounds, cabinets to pop open, glasses to fall and break. All of us have a lot of energy within our bodies, and sometimes that energy can be so powerful, it can cause disturbances in a home. Remember, we can move mountains with our mind. If we know how to utilize our full mind power, we only utilize a small portion of our minds. Walter B. Gibson, the author of the 30s 40s pulp hero The Shadow, thought of his creation so much that the guests of his home would actually see the shadow lurking around his house. Now that was a powerful mind. On this Friday night, May 4, 2007, I joined fellow HPI, Haunted and Paranormal Investigations of Northern California paranormal investigator Sherry Vincent. We went to the St. John Baptist Church Cemetery in Folsom, California. Sherry amazingly picks up many EVPs from the cemetery using a video camera. We picked up some dancing orbs over graves. At one time, I asked to have my ponytail pulled. That did not happen, but I did feel a light brushing across my leg. This occurred about 4 times. Sherry felt a slight tugging on her hair. The EVPs that we picked up were the following. Sherry asked, "Where are you?" EVP male voice, "Above the trees." I said, "Is your life elsewhere?" EVP male voice, "Maybe." Sherry tells me in a whisper, "When we're about to leave the cemetery, let's go." EVP male voice, "I can read your mind." I've been to the cemetery with Sherry before during the day, and we had more EVPs during the day than we did at night. In fact, during the day, when I asked to be touched, I felt a burning sensation on my leg that bled, then bruised. The bruise looked later like a thumbprint. Before we left, Sherry said she heard someone call her name and asked if it was me that called her name. I told her no. I was on the other side of the cemetery when she heard her name called. During stakeouts for ghosts, things can get extremely boring, so I bring along some good reading material and share it with the other ghost hunters. My favorite book for ghost hunt stakeouts are After Dark, a collection of horror by horror novelist Jeannie Rector. Her website is www.afterdarknovel.com. The Key of It All, an encyclopedic guide to the sacred languages and magical systems of the world. Book 2, The Western Mysteries, and of course the very first book, Book 1, The Easter Mysteries by David Allen Hulse. His website is http://geocities.com/DA-Hulse. David was the first influence to Sadman comic book creator Neil Gaiman, and Carlos Santana has been known to read his books. Other books that I find fascinating for ghost hunters are Arnest Self-Defense, Stick, Blade, and Empty Hand Combat, Technique of the Philippines, and Comprehensive Self-Defense by Jose G. Paman. It's important to have good reading material when you go on ghost hunts, because the stakeouts can be long, tedious, and boring, but the final results can be very exciting. Happy ghost hunting to everyone with a strong interest into the unknown. Learn more about HPI at www.hpiparanormal.net.